The Revelations of Destruction on today's Oblyron Spirituality. Greetings everyone, I am Oblyron. Thank you for joining me on today's episode where we are going to talk about how destruction leads to a number of revelations, both in the outer macrocosm of the universe and the inner microcosm within each of our own individual bodies. Now, for me, I learned that my higher self was an archetype of destruction probably some 10 years ago. And it really messed with me for a very long time. Here I am, I went on this spiritual quest to kind of look for enlightenment and to kind of see the goodness within me. And then all of a sudden, as time went on, it was revealed to me that my higher self is basically a channeler of destruction. And also I began to realize that I had these strong underworld connections as well. So yeah, when you think that, especially coming from the whole love and light, manifest, open your chakra kind of crowd, to go from that and to have all these revelations of shadow and destruction in the underworld, the unconscious mind, to have all of those come in and pretty much hit you, and over the years, it could be quite a powerful revelation. So yeah, for a while it did mess with my mind. I kind of gave up spirituality for a while and put it on the back burner. But then as the years have gone on, I began to slowly, I guess you can say, adapt and began to accept my role, my spiritual roles, the roles of my higher self, and ultimately the energies which flow through me. So here it comes, some of the revelations of destruction. So to kind of describe it in greater detail, okay, let's say, what is destruction? Destruction is basically, removing all the structures which keeps something in place. So let's say if a house were to get burnt down, well, the energy, the heat from the fire converts the structures of that house into ash and into cinder. Basically, everything that we base reality on, it's basically a house of cards. If you remove one element, all the rest of the elements implode. So if everything is frequency and vibration, you remove certain elements of frequency and vibrations, you are essentially taking out those structures from which the other harmonic series is based upon. So once that's removed, the rest of the energies, they stagnate and they implode on each other. It's very similar to, let's say, in atom bombs. We have to achieve a certain type of critical mass, and then it sets off a chain reaction. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to unraveling creation. You remove enough of a certain frequency, you remove enough of a certain, let's say, plane of existence, it creates a void, it creates a vacuum, and again, the rest of the structure begins to implode. If you do that big enough, then again, you can get the whole house of cards to implode. It sets off a chain reaction. Everything just kind of crumbles into the void. And so that's basically unraveling creation in a nutshell. Ultimately, we develop technologies, we develop abilities which are so far beyond anything that we as humans can comprehend today. We as humans, we think we're these bodies, we're these animals, I guess you can say. But really, we're so much more than that. We are consciousness, and it means that the reality is, we're not really bound by these bodies. We are bound by, especially when you look at the collective human consciousness, we we are capable of achieving anything. And so as time goes on, let's multiply that by millions of years. Let's multiply that by billions of years. What do we as humans become? I know a lot of people say, okay, well, we're going to destroy ourselves and all this. And, there is a certain, there's a certain camp that wants to hold on to that. But I think the probabilities of us actually destroying ourselves are actually pretty low. And I'm going to get into that. So again, we evolve beyond anything we can even comprehend today, human consciousness. And at some point, again, for whatever reason, my higher self comes into, let's say, the management of destruction within creation. My higher self gets to a point to where, when the time is right and when the time is appropriate, it is supposed to unravel creation, much like, let's say, taking medication at hospice to end your final moments. Like that's sort of the job of my higher self. But it's not just the fact that he has that job. It's the fact that he always has that power. And if you subscribe to the theory that there is no time, well, even though my higher self may exist, let's say, trillions of years into the future, he also exists right now, which means he has that ability to unravel everything right now. And that's a pretty crazy revelation in itself. I've come to realize that my higher self shares names with other archetypes of destruction as well. Throughout all of humanity, humans have manifested these gods and goddesses capable of destruction. So the fact that I have seen my higher self do these things, I don't consider it rather unique. It's just sort of my version of how I'm interpreting energy. So I've got a higher self who can unravel creation. Other people have imagined beings or visualized beings that can unravel creation. So obviously, are they the same being or are they different beings? Are they archetypal powers? Well, I mean, the answer is it's a little bit of everything. So essentially, we have all these beings that can just destroy everything. And then, this is just on planet Earth. Well, what about all the other planets throughout creation and throughout the galaxies? If you have our civilization that can comprehend these things, well, other civilizations can comprehend it too. So we have all these beings which, all throughout the universe, which are capable of destruction. We all share similar visions. We all share similar visions of times in the future where people can do things greater than what we can do. Again, all these beings that can destroy, all these beings that have powers that we can't even comprehend, but yet we're still here. We're still here living our lives. We're still here, with our hopes and dreams, our worries and our fears. So why are we still here? If there is so much destruction, if there is so many people that have, or so many entities that have power, and if we go by the human philosophy of, absolute power corrupts absolutely, then why are we still here? It would make sense that given the statistics, that one of these beings of power should have ended everything by now. I mean, it only makes sense. One person has a bad day, they decide to end it all. Not only for themselves, but for creation. But why are we still here? Well, ultimately, and it goes back to one of the older videos that I put out, we belong to the body of God, is that we belong to the body of God. Ultimately, if you're going around and you're destroying everything, you are pretty much just destroying yourself. You're just hurting yourself. Now, this is all things which many other civilizations have come to the realization of. I hurt you, I ultimately hurt me. And when we get to technological levels which are so great, it becomes even more apparent and more abundant. Even on this plane of existence, we have thermonuclear weapons, and we know that if we go to nuclear war, that ends it for all of us. We start to realize exactly how interconnected we are, because once all those, once we go to thermonuclear war, it ends for everyone. We see everything come to an end, and that's the ultimate example of, if I hurt you, I hurt myself. So one thing that I've learned is that my higher self has had this power for a long time. And when my higher self was, let's say, quote unquote, younger, maybe he did have a bit more of a temper tantrum. Maybe he did use powers for less than virtuous pursuits. And ultimately what we realize is, if we were to unravel creation today, we would still be here tomorrow. And we would still be repeating what we have to learn and what we have to do. Even if we were to end it today, no matter where you go, there you are. So again, when we unravel that creation, that force may implode, everything may get destroyed, but the force, the inertia of that implosion is so great that it basically just kind of expands back outwards. And we see this many times in our own physics right now. We see black holes, they accrue a certain amount of mass, and then they start to eject that mass into space. So it's a very similar process. So again, no matter where you go, there you are. And that's, you go through this a couple of times and you realize, okay, well, maybe destruction isn't the answer. Destruction is a tool. It's a tool to help reset certain systems. It's a tool to, clear old systems which no longer serve us, so we can bring in newer systems. We can make room for those systems. But to use it as something to take vengeance on, to cause pain, to, pretty much all the ways that we as humans have been using destruction throughout the 20th century is pretty much all the wrong ways to use it. We've been using it to create more weapons of war, to create pain, to create chaos, to create global economic instabilities. These are all consequences of how we use destruction. Now, maybe in the long run, it'll work out for everyone. I don't know, a lot of these things, that they take place over generations. So to say that, this conflict is beneficial to us, you don't know until history writes a story. So again, the greatest power is to not use that power. Even though my higher self may be able to just put the reset button on the things around him, it doesn't mean that it's a power that should necessarily be used. Really, the power lies in working things out. The power lies in not having to rely upon destructive methods to try and build things. And if you really think about it, using destruction to construct, it's kind of a bit going in the opposite direction. And also to say, well, when we are a little bit too overzealous in using destruction, well, who is to say that, who decides what gets destroyed and what stays? So there's a lot of moral questions involved with that too. And that's why, again, even though we may have these tools, we may have this power, we may have all these things to alter the courses of those around us, again, does it mean that it should be used, or should we allow things to unfold naturally? Yeah, that's always the age-old question. There is really no right or wrong answer to it. What will be is what will be, and that's why so many times we say it's in God's hands. Even as powerful as my higher self is, my higher self is not God. I don't know everything, and I'll never claim to know everything. My higher self will never claim to know everything either. It's just what is. So I will leave it there for now. If you've resonated with today's message, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and let us know how you resonated with today's message. If you're looking for more information and maybe some behind the scenes content, then feel free to head on over to my Discord. I also do guided meditations, as well as offer various services on there as well. So, thanks again for watching, and love and light and wisdom and shadow. And now we shall close with the chant of Oblyron. Amde Sate, Amde Oblyron, Amde Sate, Amde Oblyron.